the Trump tariffs and the impact on real estate, both for homeowners as well as investors in 2025. I will give you my conclusion and my opinion of where I think the economy is and where do we think it is going. So let's get started. The Trump tariffs and the impact that it has on real estate moving in 2025. So as we kind of talk about this subject, it's been in the news lately and everybody seems to have an opinion about it. So let's kind of break down really what is it all about and what are the major points? Because let's be honest, nobody knows what the impact is going to be. We record this as we are kind of in the beginning of April. And as we talk about it, we still don't know what are the impacts going to be by July, August, September, October, November. Everybody has an opinion, but let's understand the background. So the Trump tariffs were put in place, and the intention behind that was to have an equal playing field. So what does that mean? Well, simply put, if America is shipping some goods to China, what are the tariffs that are put on it? Let's just say it's 30%. But yet, for goods that come to America from China, what are the tariffs on that? Maybe 5 to 7%. There's an imbalance of what we charge in terms of tariffs versus what in other countries charge, be it Canada, be it India, be it other different places where we tend to ship goods to. But yet, the fact of life is that the largest consumers around the world happen to be us Americans. So that means that we're importing a lot more things from places like China, be it an iPhone or be it anything else, a lot of building supplies, a lot of other things. We're importing that from all over the world. And that is what kind of got this going, where Trump wanted equal treatment. He may say he wants to bring more jobs back. Depends on what side of the aisle you're on, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, you may have a difference in opinion. So I wrote down a few different things that will have an impact specifically on housing as we speak of it. So number one is your construction costs. So a lot of times people have heard about lumber coming from Canada. Does that mean that America doesn't have lumber? Of course not. America has a lot of lumber. If you look at it, 5% of American land is populated by the American population. What I mean by that is there's about 330, 340 million people that live in America. So 95% of land is either farmland or it's forest. So it's not like we don't have timber, but yet we use a lot of Canadian timber in terms of building and in terms of a lot of industry. But if you slap a tax on it, clearly in the short term, there may be some repercussions, especially if there's a devastation like we saw the fires in California or the devastation that we saw in places like Florida, and we need a lot more lumber. In the short term, there is going to be an impact on it. What the long-term effect is going to be determined by what the federal and the state policies are on actually being able to source American timber. So what else? Well, what about aluminum? What about roofing tiles? What about other materials? So you could see a 10 to 15% surcharge, because certainly if the material is coming from whether Vietnam, whether it's from China, whether it's from India, really doesn't matter. There may be a short-term 10 to 15% surge in terms of prices because of tariffs. Now, another thing to think about is under the name of tariffs, how do we know that the retailers are not going to be taking advantage of that and say, well, you know, it's because of the tariffs. Do you know where the goods and services come from? Of course we don't. And do we know where the underlying materials, meaning where the raw goods come from, that go in the finished product? Are they from Mexico? Are they from Canada? Are they from China? We don't know. So there may be other unintentional impact that may take place because of the tariffs when it comes to construction material as far as the goods and services are concerned in real estate. The second part of it was your supply chain disruption. Of course, that's related to point number one, which is that a lot of countries may react. Canada is threatened by saying, well, we're not going to supply electricity to United States, or we may completely cut it off. So far, they've said that they're going to surcharge any goods and services that are going from America. So I don't know if it's basically two countries trying to point guns at each other and saying who has the bigger gun, or playing a game of chicken. We don't know that yet, but certainly in the short run, it is going to have an impact on real estate. Now, as it relates to real estate in terms of the retail market versus the market of real estate as it comes to investors, right? I have a different opinion on it because to me, as an investor, you're going to hedge for anything that can go wrong. Meaning, you're going to try to buy the properties. You're going to use that as an excuse if you're buying a property to buy the property at a better price. So we'll talk about that here in a couple of seconds. Well, what does that do to housing demand? Well, certainly when you hear about tariffs or when you hear that the economy may suffer, guess what's going to happen? People who don't have to move are not going to move. So we have two problems going into today. Number one, in a lot of areas, people are locked into a very low interest rate, meaning everybody who did the refis during Corona and during the huge refis that took place, all of those people are locked into 2.5 to 3.5%, 4% interest rates. Those people are not moving anyhow. So how does that work in the real world? Well, let's just say you live in Ohio, or you live in Jersey, you live in Pennsylvania, and you're going to move to Florida in your retirement years. Now, what's that going to do? You are going to sell your property that you may have a small mortgage on, maybe $100,000, $150,000, and you have a lot of equity in the property. So you have captured equity of $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. You would traditionally sell that property, and then you're going to move that south, maybe into the Tennessees, Carolinas, Florida for a lot of people, maybe into Nevada or into Scottsdale type of area, Phoenix type of an area. Guess what happens? Those people cannot move even though they may want to move, because if they're going to go to Florida, if they're going to go to Phoenix and they buy another home, now they're going to give up a 2.5% interest rates and have to buy a home with a 6.5% interest rates. And with the amount of home prices that have increased, a lot of people are frozen in place. That's number one. Number two, what does everybody do? Everybody's in it today depends on kind of the internet, the YouTube, and all the social media platforms for their news and information. So guess what's going to happen? The only group today that's going to say, oh my God, this is a positive, is going to be the realtors. For the realtors, everything has to be turned into a positive because guess what? They have no choice. They're in the commissions business, and you have to have a positive outlook for people to continue to buy properties. Yet, what's going to happen to the average homeowner that may be thinking about doing an upgrade? Now, somebody just wants to upgrade, they have all the money in the world, and really pricing is not a factor. Guess what? It's not going to matter, good economy or bad, they're going to continue doing their move. Other people, they may be getting a job transfer, they may have other needs that's going to force a move. But if you're not forced to move, it is going to stymie or stagnate the market when there's uncertainty. See, an uncertain mind, what does it do? It does nothing. It stops in place. So you're going to see that in 2025, and especially markets that are D markets, meaning markets that have a lot of challenges, or C markets. So we have A market, B market, C market, and a D market. D market meaning being the worst market in terms of economics. C market is going to be a little bit better, but those people are the same people that go into a dealership and they buy a car based on a payment. So if you have a payment buyer, those buyers are going to have a hard time, because in some parts of the country, the pricing of homes has gone up, the taxes have gone up, the insurance has gone up across the board in the entire country, and those factors are going to limit the buyers from buying a property, because they're not buying the house necessarily. They're buying a $1,500 or $1,600 payment, and generally that same buyer is going to buy a house with FHA. What does that mean? That their income based on if they have, let's say, an $80,000, $85,000 income, they're going to get limited by how much they can qualify based on their debt service. So that particular group of people are not going to be able to buy a house, even though they may want to, and they're going to be forced to rent. And in fact, the challenge is their rent is going to be even higher than what their home payment going to be, even though their home payment will be higher to begin with. So think about it. You're kind of in a catch-22 where you're paying $1,800 or $1,900 for a home payment in terms of your rental, yet if you bought a house, you can't qualify based on the qualification standards at $1,600 in payment. And that is going to get reflected. The markets that tend to be strong today and that are going to continue to be strong are B markets. What is a B market? A B market is generally next to an affluent or an aspirational market. So these are the markets where most Americans fit in. And these are people that are not necessarily limited by payments. They don't have all the money in the world, but they're comfortable in terms of their lives. And those markets, in markets like if you take the Chicagos, the Detroits, the Philadelphias, the basic bread and butter Midwest markets, those markets are doing well in general around the country. Why? Because there is no supply. So any areas where there's a lack of supply and there is a normal amount of demand, those markets are going to do well. In markets such as, be it Tennessee, be it Atlanta, be it some markets in Texas, or be it Florida, where you have a lot of supply of homes, that market is going to continue to stagnate, and you're going to see a lot of price reductions. In general, this year is going to be the market of price reductions when it comes to a seller. It's no longer going to be the seller's market in a significant part of the country. So let's look at the next thing, which is your interest rates and the relationship to the tariffs. So what happened when you happens when you put a tariff? So, well, let's look at what happened during Corona. During Corona, they put a lot of money through a lot of different programs into the economy. The idea behind that was that the entire world was being shut down. So the feds wanted to make the money supply plentiful, and they wanted Americans to make it easy for them to have money. So they literally were giving away money. And what happened? As people are giving away, getting money that they have never had, they started injecting that capital back into the American economy, and that made two things happen. Number one, real estate went through the roof. Number two, stock market went through the roof. Why? People have money and they suddenly feel rich and they want to buy. They want to spend that money somewhere. Most people are not just going to put that money in the bank and basically save it for a rainy day. We're Americans at the end of the day. So what happened? That caused inflation in the market. All the goods and services, including if you went to a restaurant, you went to a grocery store, you bought a car, every single thing went through the roof. Now that is inflation. When the Fed sees, oh my God, the economy is doing over the top and Americans are paying almost 30-40% more for a gallon of milk, what do? On the other side, the Fed wants to cut down the money supply. How do they do that? Well, the only way they can do that is by raising the interest rates. So they raise the interest rates to fight the inflation that they caused, meaning the Congress and the Senator caused in the first place, which was by putting too much money because they wanted to be the party, and it really doesn't matter. It's not a Democrat or Republican issue, I don't think. It's an issue of politicians wanting to seem that they were solving a problem, but they will oversimplify it and oversolve it, and that creates other collateral damage. And the collateral damage in the economy was inflation went through the roofs. Hence, to stem the inflation, we had to basically the feds raise the interest rates. Now, today, we are kind of in a catch-22. Because to increase the amount of jobs and for American goods and services around the world to have a fair a fair place where American goods are not tariffed at a higher rate than other goods coming into the country, Trump has put in tariffs. So what does that do? Any good and services that's going to come into the United States is going to be inflated because of the tariffs. That is going to show up on the inflation index. Now, how do you stem that? Well, the only way to stem it again is by raising interest rates. But If goods and services are more expensive, that creates a problem for Americans. Does it really make sense in that case? Because more Americans are going to need more money to be able to maintain their basic kind of level of life or the standard of living. Then does it really make sense to kind of increase the interest rates at the same time? Because isn't that bad for the economy? Well, that's a question that has yet to be answered as to how the Feds are going to react. Nobody knows. Everybody has speculations about it, that they're going to have to raise the interest rates, but common sense would dictate that that would be further worse for the real estate market, and that would be worse for the economy. We've already talked about this, but the home buyer sentiment. At the end of the day, people do things because they feel positive about an economy. They don't feel as positive about an economy. When Trump came into power, a lot of people felt good about the economy because they felt that the administration, whether they liked him as a Republican or not, that was besides the point, they felt he would be sensible in terms of economics. Today, we're hearing a lot of talk, as I do this recording, that supposedly a lot of big CEOs, a lot of people are like, oh no, oh my God, this is a really bad policy. Now, what exactly somebody said and in what context that was said in? Today with social media, it's really, really hard to understand because as we all know, they'll take a picture of Jamie Dimon, take one line, and somebody will have a monologue for 45 minutes. And his words are going to be used for a 45-minute monologue, and they'll be twisted to fit their narrative, whether it be positive and or be negative. The last part of it is the investment trends. This is what kind of concerns us from a standpoint of investing. Now, from an investor standpoint, if I'm a real estate investor, if the economy goes up, does it benefit me? Of course, because all the properties that I own already, those properties are going to be worth more money. So even though the inflation, when I go out to a restaurant, I might not like it because the same meal I could have bought for $150 today, it's going to cost me maybe $160 or $180. And at the gas pump, instead of paying $85 to fill up a tank of gas, I may be paying $100. But yet, on the other side of it, as a real estate investor, whenever I am investing, as an astute investor, it becomes my job that if I'm investing into a soft economy, I'm going to be negotiating harder because I'm not going to feel as positive about the forecast and about the economic outlook. Generally, for an investor that is very astute and that is a shrewd investor, an economy going up or an economy going down does not hurt them if they are a shrewd and a long-term thinking investor. On the short term, it will hurt investors. Why? Because a lot of people still will overpay for properties. An economy, if it's stagnant, if it's going up or if it's going down, has zero impact. In fact, a lot of positive impact will come if the economy starts crashing a little bit, because for the last 10 or 15 years, we have not really seen a real estate crash. When was the last time that real estate prices came down? I mean, that was back in 2001. We saw a little bit during when we had 9/11. After that, we saw a big crash, obviously, in 2008. And since 2008, after 2012, most of the country started recovering. Since 12 till we're recording this in 2025, we haven't seen a single real estate recession, even when the entire world got shut down. And we should have, like a lot of countries, the prices should have come down in the United States, but because they injected so much capital into the economy, instead of the prices stagnating or coming down, they in fact doubled and tripled in some of the areas. Just a few days ago, we had a huge crash in Wall Street, which is about 2,500 points or so were lost on Wall Street. And yet, if you look at the media, they say, oh my God, this is the worst time ever. Guys, look at 1929, look at the 50s, look at the 70s, look at the 80s, look at the 90s, look at the 2000s. But yet, if you look at the stock market today, it's an obscenely high amount. Yes, did we have a little bit of a pullback? Of course. Yet, that is relative in terms of where we are. We're sky high, and yet it comes back down by about 2 or 3, 4%, 5%. I mean, does it really matter? Is that not a great opportunity for a lot of investors to buy? Certainly for real estate. If the market corrects itself a little bit, which it needs to, because we are at a high point in terms of affordability. So if you're a real estate investor, any type of chaos in the market can be a phenomenal opportunity because it gives you a chance to enter the market. Now, do some people lose money? Do some people not know how to adjust with change? Absolutely. 2008, for a lot of investors, was devastating, yet it gave a lot of investors like me an opportunity to jump into the market and build a fortune. It's not the tariffs that affect you. It's not the politics of the country that will affect you. It's how you choose to react to it. Will there be some collateral damage because of it? Will there be some things that will go up and down? Absolutely. Yet, if Americans as a whole get hurt, guess what happens? Canadians, Mexico, entire world, be it India, be it Honduras, be it Korea, or be it China, every single economy in the world would suffer, because today we do not live in an isolated world, and our economics is not isolated. Every single country in the world is connected, and it's connected with our spending power as Americans. So if it's bad for America, it is bad for the rest of the world. And this is no different if there's a conflict in Israel and Palestine. That is not good for humankind, because that creates a collateral damage effect around the world, and we will see that with economics. So if you are somebody that tends to panic and tends to get concerned, please understand what actually has an impact on real estate prices. It's the uncertainty of the markets. But if you're a real estate investor, pray for a recession, because in recession is when you accumulate assets that as the economy changes, you become extremely wealthy as the market comes up. Hopefully that answered some of the questions, some of the concerns. That's just, again, my opinion, and you may choose to agree with it or you may choose to disagree with it. This is Andrew. Thanks a bunch. Have a good day.